And we're back with a cool Photoshop trick. This trick will show you how to take your designs and warp them onto a plane like this and have this really cool effect where it looks a little 3D and really make your design shine. So the cool thing about this trick also is that you can warp your designs into this shape and then update, if you would like, your designs or your content and not have to redo the warp again. So it will just update anything that you save. So here's how we start with just a basic image background. You want to pull in an SVG file. Now this will work with primarily vector objects with this part of the trick. I will show you in a minute how to do this with a bitmap. So just hit return. Now what we want to do is hold down the control key, convert to smart object, and the reason why we're making a smart object out of a smart object is because we want to warp this object. So we want to be able to warp each corner of this plane. So if you hold down the command key, you can move each of the corners individually. And I like to try and find some kind of place on the background to use as a kind of reference, right? So you want it to look like it belongs on that plane, right? So I'm finding these kind of places where I want it to match up. I hit return and that looks pretty good. Now what we want to do is we also want to add a drop shadow. So I'm hitting drop shadow here and you'll see I actually used a blue color because this kind of matches the palette of the background a little bit better. Now if we double click this, now you'll see the contents of that first smart object and you can see it's flat and straight. So you can modify this and it will update the warped object in the main file. But let's say if we wanted to edit these contents of this SVG file, you can now double click on it and you can go in and edit in Illustrator. So Photoshop automatically knows to open up Illustrator when there's an SVG file. So here I've made a change. I hit save. So now we're in our Photoshop Smart Object and you can see it's already updated from the SVG file that we saved. So one thing to remember, this is linked to that SVG file. So you need to make sure that the SVG file and the Photoshop file stay together. It's always going to look for that link there. So when you make any changes to that file, you're going to see it updated here. And then we're going to hit save. And then any changes that we've made, we're going to go back here and it's going to show up here automatically. You can see this A has been changed. So this is a pretty cool way to update your vector files on a smart object and be able to edit them inside of Illustrator. Now, I also did this previously and created one with a bitmap. So in this file, I'm going to show you that we also have a vector version of this other design we did. And you can create more layers in here and then just turn off the layer that you don't want. So here I added some bitmaps inside of Photoshop. Now, if you try and create bitmaps inside your SVG file, they will not import very well. So I've created this inside of Photoshop and added the bitmaps here. Now, if I hit save, the cool thing is you go back to the plane and there it is. It's all updated with this content. So you can update that smart object with as many layers as you'd like in here and then just turn whichever one off that you don't want to use. All right, that's our trick.